Born the fifth child of King Aenys I and Queen Alyssa Velaryon in 36 AC, Alysanne Targaryen was a sweet, kind, and clever girl who rode the dragon Silverwing. Overshadowed in her youth by elder siblings expected to inherit rule over the seven kingdoms of Westeros, everything changed when the king died in 42 AC and his brother Maegor the Cruel usurped the Iron Throne. Still a child, Alysanne and her brother Jaehaerys were left in the care of their mother Alyssa, while the rest of the family was scattered and in danger from Maegor and the Faith Militant Uprising, a religious rebellion protesting the Targaryen tradition of incest. During this time, her brother Viserys was tortured to death by the new king, while her eldest brother Aegon, true heir to the Iron Throne, was killed in the battle beneath the God's Eye, leaving his sister wife Rhaena a widow, who was then forced to marry Maegor, the man that killed her husband and stole her crown. A fearsome warrior riding Balerion the Black Dread, Maegor was a merciless tyrant who soon lost nearly all support when the Lords of the Realm rallied behind his nephew Jaehaerys Targaryen, eldest living child of Aenys, who made an alliance with Rhaegar Baratheon of Storm's End and was proclaimed the true king of Westeros. A boy of 14, Jaehaerys mounted his dragon Vermithor and led his army to the capital, joined by his sister Alysanne, aged 12, riding Silverwing, and Rhaena Targaryen, the eldest sibling, aged 25, mounted on Dreamfire after she fled the capital to join her brother's campaign. Yet when they arrived in King's Landing, Maegor the Cruel was dead, possibly from suicide, and so King Jaehaerys I sat upon the Iron Throne. Unable to take full charge of the kingdom until the age of 16, the king's mother Alyssa was given regency, while his greatest supporter, Lord Rhaegar Baratheon, served as hand of the king. Known as the Conciliator, the reign of Jaehaerys brought peace to a warring realm by granting amnesty and pardons to the followers of Maegor and the Faith Militants. To celebrate the end of the war, House Targaryen held a golden wedding where the king's mother Alyssa married Rhaegar Baratheon in 49 AC. Amid the lavish feasts and merriment, a tourney was held called the War for the White Cloaks, where hundreds of knights competed to join the Kingsguard of Jaehaerys I. In the end, 5 champions were named, each of whom felt a special loyalty to the king, as they earned their position through merit rather than noble birth. After the wedding, the small council went to work making marriage plans for both Jaehaerys and his sister Alysanne. To avoid trouble, neither were consulted, as the siblings were close all their lives and likely wanted to marry each other. Fearing another religious rebellion, the small council decided 13-year-old Alysanne would marry Sir Oren Baratheon, brother to the Hand of the King. But the clever young girl learned of this betrothal and immediately told Jaehaerys, before the two departed for Dragonstone, where they wed in a secret ceremony. Furious to learn of their actions, Alyssa and Rhaegar gathered their warriors and sailed to end the marriage before it was consummated. Yet Jaehaerys and Alysanne were not alone, protected by the loyal Kingsguard who stood their ground despite being badly outnumbered. Wanting to avoid bloodshed, the king's mother convinced her husband to back down and return to the capital. Jaehaerys and Alysanne remained on Dragonstone for the rest of his regency, spending every available moment together and charming everyone with the happiness of their relationship. Though all agreed Jaehaerys was intelligent, kind, wise, and hardworking, many believed the same about Alysanne, who always sat by his side in meetings and offered sage counsel. When at last the king turned 16, the reign of Jaehaerys and Alysanne truly began, considered by many to be the golden age of Targaryen rule. Throughout their long years together, the queen was a regular fixture at small council meetings, and was the king's most trusted advisor. Some of their most notable achievements included a unified code of law for the Seven Kingdoms, reducing the crown's debt with Braavos, limiting personal expenses, and investing in infrastructure by raising taxes on the wealthy. This added revenue allowed them to build the Dragon Pit, along with fountains to provide clean water, drains, sewers, and a road system to connect the territories they controlled. In order to prevent another religious rebellion, they sent 7 speakers across the continent to popularize the doctrine of exceptionalism, which stated that House Targaryen were an exception to the laws against incest because they could bond with dragons. In time, this idea gained enough support to be officially integrated into the teachings of the faith. However, when it first began to spread, some were unconvinced, and so during the First Royal Progress in 51 AC, while visiting Maidenpool, a group of septas attempted to assassinate the pregnant queen while she was bathing. Yet Alysanne was so beloved, her servant women threw themselves at the attackers, saving her life. Fearing for her safety, the queen wanted a female guard who could accompany her anywhere, and so the king sent for Jonquil Dark, a warrior who distinguished herself in the War for the White Cloaks years earlier. Unfortunately, this attack was followed by the premature birth of the king and queen's first child, Aegon, and his death 3 days later. Over the next 3 decades, Alysanne gave birth to 12 more children, including Daenerys, who died young of the shivers, Aemon, who became heir, Balon, who became heir after the death of Aemon, Alyssa, the wife of Balon, Miguel, who served as a sept of the faith, Vagon, who was an archmaester, Daella, who died in childbirth, Sarah, who was disinherited for her wild behavior and became a prostitute in Lys, Visera, who died in a riding accident, Gaemon, who died after only 3 months, Valerion, who died a year later, and finally Gale, born frail and sickly. Known as Good Queen Alysanne, the wife of Jaehaerys was beloved by nobles and small folk alike, described as charming, kind, wise, scholarly, and charitable, delighting in bringing young nobles to court and marrying them into good houses from other regions of Westeros, making many successful matches, which encouraged peace and brought the realm closer together. She also created her famous Women's Court, meetings held all across the continent where any woman, rich or poor, could bring their concerns directly to the queen. While visiting the north, Alysanne befriended House Stark, arranged a new gift of land for the Night's Watch, and sold her jewels to fund construction for the Castle Deeplake. She then held a women's court in a nearby town where she learned the tradition of First Night was still followed. This was an old custom where noble lords had the right to bed the small folk women in their territory on their wedding night. Outraged, she convinced Jaehaerys and the small council to banish the practice entirely. Though the king and queen loved each other dearly, they had 2 great quarrels in their later years, which separated them for some time. The first was over the disgrace of their daughter, Sarah, who became a prostitute in Lys. After several years in exile, Alysanne begged her husband to bring her back, but the king would not hear of it and spoke harshly, considering her dead. This left the queen so angry she left him and relocated to Dragonstone. Eventually, their eldest child Aemon arranged a reunion, but a second great quarrel followed the death of this same son in 92 AC, when a new heir was needed. The king chose their second-born son Balon, thereby skipping over Rhaenys, eldest daughter to the deceased Aemon Targaryen. Angry that their granddaughter was being passed over simply because she was a woman, the queen again left her husband, remarking that, "If your grace truly believes that women lack the wit to rule, plainly you have no further need of me." 2 years later, they were reconciled once more, this time by their daughter Miguel, and again they were happy. But after losing so many children over the years, Alysanne was a shadow of her former self, and eventually suffered an accident which broke her hip, withering away the last of her strength, leaving her walking with a cane. Yet the final blow came in 99 AC, when her youngest daughter Gale was seduced, impregnated, and abandoned by a traveling singer, resulting in the birth of a stillborn child, which left the girl so devastated, she ended her own life. Consumed by grief over the death of her daughter, Alysanne died in 100 AC at the age of 64, remembered as the greatest queen in the history of the Seven Kingdoms.